Now, when I talk about traditional piano lessons today, I'm not talking about traditional does not mean in person, right? In person, there are a lot of in-person piano teachers out there that are doing amazing stuff and doing creative piano lessons that are super fun and engaging with teaching creative piano skills. The type of lessons I'm talking about today is traditional piano teaching, where we are sort of stuck in the same mold that we have been teaching basically for hundreds of years, since piano was the main instrument and the main entertainment in the household as well. So there's a lot of things that have changed since the piano was invented about over 300 years ago. And one of those, the instrument itself has changed. We now have electronic versions where we can play quietly with headphones. And that is a big indicator of one of the things that is the most major difference, is that playing the piano these days is for our own enjoyment and our own fulfillment more often than we want to go and become a concert pianist or something like that, or a professional performer of some kind. So our lessons need to change because of that, because we're no longer wanting to be we're no longer crowding around the piano for at home for our entertainment every night and needing to play songs that everyone's familiar with in the way that everyone's familiar with hearing them of that era, right? They played the songs that they played because those were the songs that there were, but for some reason we've taken a lot of those songs into now, and some traditional piano lessons will focus on the songs of that era rather than the plethora of amazing songs that we have had since then. So I want to get into it now. There was one other thing that I wanted to ask for. Make sure that you sprinkled in the comments, say hello in the comments if you're watching. And what was the other thing? Oh, if you want to make sure that you get today's show notes and you haven't done this already, comment show notes in the comments, because my Ruth bot will send you a message and will let you know where all the show notes are for all my previous episodes of these free piano trainings that I do every single week. So if you're here today, come back next week as well, because I do them every single week at the same time. Right, are you ready to get into traditional piano lessons? Let's talk about it. So as I said before, it's a very traditional, a very old instrument, and in a lot of ways the problems of this traditional piano lessons are because they haven't changed since way back then, and our ways that we play the piano, the things that we play on the piano, the things that we want to be able to play, and the skills that we want to be able to have are very different to what used to be the norm. So this is why over time a lot of piano teachers have changed, and they've wanted to make things more sort of engaging. Gamified is another thing that teachers do to make lessons more exciting, and also a more modern repertoire. So let's get into it. I have a little slideshow here, so let's get into that. Okay, here we go. So the problem with traditional piano lessons, the first thing I want to go over is this point that it teaches technicality, not, well, some creativity maybe, but certainly technicality over creativity, and technique is important, but it's not necessarily the reason that anyone really wants to play piano. A particular person might want to, but most people don't dream of having perfect technique as a pianist. They don't dream of playing correctly. That's not usually the desire behind it. Even though good technique is definitely a good thing to have and a good thing to work on, it's not the be all and end all, whereas in traditional piano lessons it definitely is the major emphasis. So who out of you guys dreams of playing freely, naturally, playing by ear, by rote, improvising, composing? Sounded like I was going to say composting. Composing, performing, and creating, right? These are all the sort of creative skills. This is why we're here at Piano Picnic, because that's what we love to focus on. So those things are also important. And in traditional piano lessons, I'm going to say that on the whole, those things are not included. I know, I find it crazy as well. And to be honest, I grew up taking very traditional piano lessons, and this is why I can speak to this, because that's how I learned to play piano officially. And then on the other side, I was watching the pianists that played in church, and pianists that one incredible pianist that I knew at school who was much older than me, and he used to play by ear and improvise and rattle off these incredible songs that he'd written. There were people in my life that I could see and go, that's not what I'm learning in lessons. I'm learning to play technically. I want to play like that creatively. And so I had to seek that out by myself and go on that journey. Which is why this is why I am so incredibly passionate about teaching these skills, because I didn't get to learn them in a way that was served to me, right? I had to go. I've been on a lifetime. Well, as much life as I have has been spent pursuing those skills. So this is why I have such a passion for teaching these skills, as opposed to the more traditional technical reading skills of playing piano, because I feel like those are already taken care of. It's this creative stuff that really people are missing out on and they want to learn. That's what I find anyway. So, technicality over creativity. Let's get real. Okay, so the second point is that we're exam obsessed in traditional lessons. So I've heard that in the US, piano exams aren't pushed as much as they are in the rest of the world, but I know that certainly in New Zealand, I'm pretty sure in Australia, in the UK, and many other places, exams are utmost priority in your traditional piano lessons. And it's this sort of whole, like, what grade are you? What grade did you get up to? And people judge you based on what grade that you're up to. If I would be in school and I had other friends that took traditional piano lessons, and we would, compete with each other. What grade are you up to now? What score did you get in your exam? And I know that that's a natural thing to do, but at the same time, being able to follow some instructions and adhere to a strict curriculum is not necessarily a test of your musical ability and your creativity and musicianship as a whole. Right? So you could flunk an exam in traditional piano, classical piano exams, but still have an incredible ear. And those things aren't necessarily the same thing. So this is why I'm a little bit about exams. I did sit a lot of them. I did give up. Basically, I got up to grade 8 and then I decided not to do the rest of them. You can do other ones after that. I was like, I'm going to go study cool stuff, I mean, each to their own, but I think being obsessed with exams is not everything. And in traditional piano lessons that are modeling this sort of same method that has been used since a very, very long time ago without having changed much, that is certainly the emphasis is on exams. And it's just a bummer, because that an exam isn't the type of exams that they do aren't it's similar to traditional school systems, right? They test you on your ability to follow instructions and to stay within the lines. They are not testing, or they are not taking into account your ability to understand what's happening in the music. They're not taking your ability to interpret and to elaborate. Those things are not necessarily important when you're just trying to get to grade 4 or grade 5. So that I find is a bummer. Yes, all the best composers have lived and died. So if you want to compose stuff, forget about it, because we're only obsessed with the music of the 16, 17, and 1800s, right? That is a thing. And so there's not a lot of room for you to feel encouraged to delve into composition and creativity if everything that everyone is obsessed with is hundreds of years old. So that is also a problem. We need to be learning some of the incredible composers of this day, that people that are still living that are awesome. And this is not against classical music, but there's some great contemporary classical composers that we can look at their stuff. We can also be encouraging each other to compose as well. Of course, we could never light a candle to Bach or Mozart, but we can sort of do our own thing, and it's different, and it doesn't mean we should shy away from creativity. That's a bit of a bugbear of mine about traditional lessons. And the last thing is reading over listening. Now, with traditional piano lessons, it's an extreme emphasis from the very first lesson is you will learn to read sheet music. That's the most important thing. And please put a comment in if you went to those lessons maybe when you were younger and you got a book put in your face straight away and they were like, this is a crotchet or this is a quarter note. And you started learning, you came to piano lessons, you thought you were going to learn how to play the piano, but actually, we're going to look at a book straight away, and we're going to look at what the piano looks like on what this beautiful music that you've listened to and you've been inspired and you want to come and learn on piano. Nope, we're going to look at what it looks like. And I am not saying, okay, let me just face to face here. I am not saying, this is just what I have on my music stand right now, and this is Songs of the Piano Stars. This is actually one of the books that I edited when I was working at Music Sales, Wise Publications. Anyway, what I wanted to show that was because reading sheet music is a wonderful skill. It's fantastic, and I do definitely encourage people to learn to read, there's a mosquito, people to read sheet music. I can read sheet music. Well, in fact, you could argue that I made sheet music for many years. You could argue it, it's true. So I definitely have a wonderful background and have skills in reading sheet music. So I would be a hypocrite to say not to do that. But with traditional piano lessons, I find that the emphasis is on that always and from the beginning. Rather than, and here's just an alternate opinion that I know a lot of modern creative piano teachers also agree with me, and that is that as children, we do not learn to read and write as soon as we come out of the womb, do we? It's just not natural when we're learning the language of our mother tongue, right? Of our culture. We learn to understand it first, to listen and understand. Then we learn to speak. Then we learn to read and write. Okay, so that whole thing that we do with it's always that order, no matter what culture you go to. And so it seems to be pretty agreed upon that is the way to learn your language. Now, the language of music, for some reason, for many, many years, we did it the other way. Or in fact, just completely forgot about listening and speaking the language of music and just focused on seeing, reading and writing. Or reading, and also when you're younger, you do exercises to when you're a beginner, you do exercises to draw the treble clef and all that sort of thing. So that's a major problem with traditional piano lessons that it annoys me because being able to hear is such a major part of music, because it means that you are learning. Whenever you're out and about and you hear music or you go to a concert, it means you're absorbing. It means you're interpreting what you hear, and your musicianship is growing every time you listen to music or listen to another musician. You don't always have to be at the piano or with your sheet music book in order to be learning more music, right? So we need to be able to understand what we're playing. That's what opens us up to be able to be creative, learn the rules so that you can break them. That's the whole idea, right? So that we can be creative, break those rules, do things like improvising, composing, playing from a lead sheet, playing by ear. All those things are due to listening. Audiating, which is the idea of audiating is a word we use for going in your ears and sort of internalizing it in your head and maybe coming out your mouth as well. So when you hear a note and you hear someone else sing it, and then you go, okay, that's that note, and then you sing the same note, you're audiating. You're basically taking what you hear and sort of circulating it through your senses and then out your mouth. So that is a skill that we also need to develop as well, and that's definitely not covered in traditional piano lessons. So what else have I got here? Can't remember what the next slide is. Oh yeah, so I'm going to go to that in a second. With all of this, the main problem is that piano students sort of get, over the hundreds of years, have been sort of spat out as cookie cutter classical pianists that are trained to play correctly and classically in a concert hall, and that's fine if that's the outcome that student wants. But previously, there hasn't been so much of a discussion as, what are your goals as a pianist? What do you most love to listen to? What has inspired you to play the piano? That doesn't really go on in traditional piano lessons. You just kind of get the books and starting pieces that everyone gets, and there's not a lot of room to say, what is it that inspires you? Do you want to compose? Do you want to play by ear? Do you want to be able to just sit at the piano and play and improvise? Not necessarily... that doesn't necessarily always work with children, because they don't always know what they want or what inspires them. But certainly with adults, we can definitely ask those questions, because we've had a lifetime of inspiration and experience that is oh God, I just lost the word. That is sort of inspiring those, or motivating us to come and get piano lessons, right? There's always a reason, and you're probably thinking of it right now. If you know what your reason is, what inspires you to want to play the piano, chuck it in the comments, because I would love to hear. But it comes down to that, and it should always start from that. There's no cookie cutter. I believe we smash down the cookie cutter piano lessons, and we get to what really is your driving force for wanting to play the piano, and you go and do that first, right? There's this idea that you have to learn how to read music, you have to learn how to play the songs that are in the books that you're allowed to use, and you have to do the grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before you're allowed to go and try anything, before you're allowed to try writing your own song, before you have permission to have enough knowledge to be able to try to play by ear. I bet you can guess what I think of that. Okay. That was me very, very quickly and very subtly trying to pull the fingers. I think that you can learn all of those things, all those creative pursuits, you can learn from a beginner level. Because we have this idea that we have to be this much in traditional piano playing before we can be creative, so that we can be good creatively straight away. And that's just too much pressure and also too much work. I say we start songwriting from the start with what you know. We start improvising with what you know, because most of what's behind creative piano playing is about feeling the freedom and the confidence to do so, and to have the mindset where you're not being judgmental with yourself about the fact that it's beginner improvising or beginner songwriting or beginner playing by ear or playing from a lead sheet. There's nothing wrong with that, and you're going to be a beginner anyway. You might as well be a beginner at the thing that is motivating you to learn piano. Gosh, preach! To learn how to express, to elaborate, to indulge, and yes, also to train, because becoming better at the piano is not just gonna airy-fairy in our lap. We do have to do repetition of exercises. We have to practice. We have to memorize concepts. But learning piano creatively is about the whole picture and about becoming a musician, not just someone who can read sheet music and play piano from a book. I just said it, and I'm going to say it because this is what I believe. Right. Now, if you have heard this has resonated with you, you need to get your hands on some resources. I would love to teach you what I know. I have a bunch of courses about all of those things, with the exception of composing. So right now I have courses on lead sheets called Loving Lead Sheets, playing by ear, it's called Songs by Ear. I have a course on improvising called Peaceful Improvising at Home. And what am I missing out on? Lead sheets. That's all available in our membership. It's called the Creative Pianist. Now, I did my first intake about 3 months ago, and we've got a lovely group of Creative Pianist members going through the membership. They are loving it. In fact, I asked them for some feedback so that I could share it with you guys. Look, I have one person email back and said, look, she said, I was so excited to become a Creative Pianist member. When I saw the list of courses I'd have access to, learning these skills and practicing piano with Ruth's guidance gives me the independence I need to learn at my own pace. If I have a question about something, I email Ruth and she gets back to me with a prompt response. Every month we have an awesome live session on a particular topic, and it's great because I can watch the replay. She said, playing piano creatively is now something I practice every day. It's my me time from screens and life demands. It's a time I can put all the worries of stresses of the day down and just focus on listening and playing. I treasure it, and I would recommend the membership to anyone who is self-motivated and keen to not just learn the piano, but to understand how music is made. That was from Louisa, and I love that. She sent me that email yesterday, and I was just like, I have to share this with people in my live stream.